Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening. I better check my sound before I start. Right. So that's better. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the show. Bit of a twisted one this week. We don't know where everyone is, but you've got me and James on. And we was gonna run with abortion this week, but our guests failed. And I was just saying to James, if it's the same person I think it is, he got attacked at weekend at Speaker's Corner, but we'll have to see. So, I just want to bring up something that I've gone in the news, and we'll hear mine and James' thoughts on it. So, Cambridge faces backlash for dropping Anglo-Saxon, the name Anglo-Saxon. And when you read into it, they don't want the Anglo-Saxon because it nationalism, far right. This is why they don't want Anglo-Saxon. And if you talk to a lot of nationalists and all that lot, they will mention Anglo-Saxon. Now, you know why am I bringing this up? Well, Oldham are knocking down its market. And they've been advertised all over social media in all the Oldham things. There was advertising that going to make Jubilee Park. And I have done a little video on this. Now they don't want to do a Jubilee Park. They're going to name it Tommyfield Park. And why? Jubilee, the Queen, colonialism, nationalism, far right. So, the thing is, if you take Anglo-Saxon out of the books, then we become a nation of nobodies. We become a nation of bastards. That's what we become, a nation of bastards. And that's what they want. They don't want the English or the British to have an identity. And it absolutely ruffles me feathers, this, when I see it going on. It really does. And getting rid of Anglo-Saxon and saying things about the coronation and what something's called, it just erases our history more. So in the next generation now, they won't know that they're related to Anglo-Saxon. They'll think that they're a bunch of immigrants, like everyone or the lefties always say. But it's just so wrong, and it really ruffles me feathers. Let's get Paul in. Good evening, Paul.
Evening, chaps.
So I was just starting off, Paul, talking about they want to erase the term Anglo-Saxon, and I mentioned also that they was going to name a green area in the town centre in Oldham Jubilee Park, but that's been put off now. They want to call it Tommyfield Park. And why? Because Jubilee, the Queen, colonialism, far right nationalism. This is so, they're erasing our identity. And we have talked a few times about these things, but it just brings it into more focus. If they get rid of the term Anglo-Saxon, the next generation of people here will just think we're a load of bastards, and we don't have any links to anything and stuff like that. This is what they're up to now, and it's just wrong. And I'm sure we'll get to Paul first, but I'm sure Paul would agree. And me and Paul, we've been through a few generations, and we've seen this decline. Paul, what do you think?
Well, they're not only erasing our ethnic history, but also our spiritual, our cultural history. Interesting you mentioned Jubilee Park there. Jubilee is a principle that comes out of the Bible. It was once every 7 years, there was a Jubilee. I mean, there was forgiveness of debt and forgiveness of sins and a celebration, a coming together of the nation of Israel, the Israelites in the Old Testament. So Jubilee is an ancient word. And of course, they don't want Christian heritage in this country anymore. I mean, what's happening in the church is absolutely scandalous. I don't know if you saw that, the appointment of the Archbishop of Wales, the church in Wales. It was a lassie, a lesbian lassie, and who believes not in Jesus Christ, not in the gospel of salvation, but in diversity. So it becomes the church of diversity now. She'll have various groups praying in her church, such as, the LGBT crowd. She'll have the Muslims along. I mean, King Charles has just done it, hasn't he? In Windsor Castle, he's had the big feast for the end of Ramadan. And then the following night, he had a celebration of the LGBT community. I wonder why he didn't have them in a joint session, the Muslims and the LGBT together. That would have been a good laugh, wouldn't it? But anyway, Prince Charles has taken an oath at his coronation to defend the Protestant faith. I mean, that's forgotten that we are actually a Protestant nation, that, we had the Reformation in this country, and we have a Church of England, a church which is rooted in the Bible and which is our national church. But that seems to be, we haven't even got an Archbishop of Canterbury now. I don't know what's happened there. The previous one, who's a real non-entity, he's just disappeared, and they haven't replaced him. It's absolutely bizarre. It's gone on for months now, and nobody's really that bothered because, I went to Lincoln Cathedral a few weeks ago, and what a magnificent building that is. I don't know if you've been, James, Lincoln Cathedral. When it was built, it was the biggest building in the world, and when you go there, you'd appreciate the scale of that place. It's built on a hill. You have to climb a steep hill to get there. But its towers are magnificent. The decoration's magnificent. You go in there and it's like entering a different realm. It's absolutely magnificent. And you're in awe of it, really, of just how fantastic our inheritance is and our culture is. We have these cathedrals up and down the country. You can go to Durham, which was built by the Normans. St. Albans, which was built using material from Roman buildings that remained. St. Paul's Cathedral in the city of London, which is built by Christopher Wren, which is our national church, really. And there's so much, so much inheritance there. And yet it's all being pushed aside now because all the time we have to celebrate the new cultures that have come amongst us. And we know chief amongst that is Islam. We've got to treat Islam with the utmost respect. Islam demands that. Sadly, the church is rotted from the inside as well as from the outside. We need passionate Christians and committed traditionalists within the church. Really, if we ever acquire political power as a nationalist movement, we have to redeem the Church of England, get rid of all these liberal lefties in charge, and put solid, old-fashioned Christians in charge, which you had until the 1960s. And the moral corruption we see in this society, because it's not just the erosion of our ethnic identity, it's the erosion of the traditional family, of traditional morals, notions of right and wrong, of traditional sexuality. Male and female, let the two become one, start a family. This is the basis of any society. We take this for granted now, that somehow we can live in a society with fractured families. We can live in a society without a faith. We can live in a society without consciousness of its history and its past. We can, but it will be chaos. And other people will come in and make claims and take territory, and eventually will be brushed aside because that sort of society will never be sustained. It says in the Bible that a society which promotes homosexuality will be vomited out of the land. It says that explicitly in the book of Leviticus. So all these modern sort of ideas, or so-called modern ideas, to go back a long way, to be honest, they're all demonic, they're all destructive, and ultimately they're going to lead us down into a hellhole. James, what's your response?
Yeah, I like what you said there, Paul. Have I got much background noise? Can you hear me all right? Yeah. Yeah, you're seeing it at the moment, or the last who knows how long, but bit by bit, institutions have been sold off. The church is not traditional, and we're just losing our identity, and it's a spiritual war, because bit by bit our history is being changed, and our culture and our buildings and our education systems are all teaching people not to like our history and basically not to like your own people. And that's a big problem, because when you've got loads of youth going through schools and being programmed not to like your own people, they're going to be for refugees. They're going to be for the change of culture, because all they know is rubbish. We've done such terrible things throughout our time, and we deserve to be replaced. But actually, that couldn't be more the opposite. Yeah, we've done some bad things, but given the size of the empire and all the good that we brought to countries, with law systems, um, you know, ending slavery. That was the Brits who done that. And like you were saying, Paul, the architecture we have is phenomenal. Even in little towns and small places, you see it everywhere, and you think, wow, we got to work to sustain that and be proud of that. So yeah, I'll leave that there. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you. And he's right. Like the Europeans, Britain especially, were world leaders, and rule of law, democracy. These are English values that are used in a lot of countries around the world. Is our kind of law system, and theatre, art, stuff like that. We do have a really rich past, but that's going to go when they get rid of words like Anglo-Saxon, so that they can say, well, you're not Anglo-Saxon, you're a nation of immigrants, which we're not a nation of immigrants. You just couldn't make it up. But it's ruffled my feathers a bit, because obviously that issue in Oldham with Jubilee Park, and them wanting to change it because it looks too nationalist and stuff like that, and any decent nationalist will have said that the word Anglo-Saxon many times. They would have said, somebody in Britain who's got a history and a culture here would have said Anglo-Saxon a lot of times. That's what they would have said in the live. So they don't like that. And obviously it's it like to the left, and it's too far right to say that sort of thing. And I'm not going to let it go. I'm going to write to the council about that Jubilee Park, and I'm going to do videos on it all the time. And as we,
know what, John, we saw all this last time. We saw it when Blair got to power, and as James just said, they start to denigrate British history. Anything bad they can sort of frame, they present this as who we are. It's to bring us down. It's to demoralise us. And all our glory, all our great moments are just forgotten. They're not celebrated. It's seen as almost like national chauvinism to celebrate your great past. But every healthy nation, every healthy person celebrates the big landmarks in its life. Now, next week is on April the 9th, which is on Saturday. It's the anniversary of the Battle of Maldon. Now, most people won't know about the Battle of Maldon, but it was a big battle that was fought in Essex. When the Norsemen arrived, they burned down Ipswich, and they arrived on Nordsea Island in the Blackwater Estuary, and then they fought a battle there against the Anglo-Saxons, we were talking about. And it was a ferocious battle. And the leader of the Anglo-Saxons, Bryn North, he was 67. He died in the battle. And but there's a famous poem about the Battle of Maldon, and it allowed the Danegeld to take over this land. So a friend of mine, whose family, the Gad family, actually fought at this battle, and I remembered in the poem that's been written about it. And he's going down on Saturday to celebrate this. There's going to be some sort of remembrance there, and they're going to go and visit the battle site and so on. And this is remembrance of our history. They used to say that the churches were repositories of the memories of British history, all the great battles we've fought in. You know, the great battles of the Napoleonic Wars. You can go into churches and the banners are still there from these battles that were fought on the continent, maybe in the Peninsular War, maybe, you know, the Battle of Waterloo itself, but also the battles at sea, Nelson, you know. And so, yeah, we need to remember these landmark moments in our history. I mean, I'm in the Orange Order and we celebrate the Battle of the Boyne. Not to be triumphalist against anybody, but to remember that this is the birth of British liberty. Because of the victory of William of Orange, we were granted liberty in this country. Despotism, ruled by arbitrary monarch, was cast aside. This was the model in France, and instead we got a model based on parliaments. And so we have Robert Walpole, the first Prime Minister, 1721. And you talk about 1805, the Battle of Trafalgar. But with these landmark moments in our history, we've got to remember them so we have a remembrance of where we came from. You can go to, you talk about the Anglo-Saxons, but 1066, of course, the Norman invasion, the Battle of Hastings, and the transformation that brought in this country. But then there are great victories such as, I don't know if you know about this, James, 1415, the Battle of Agincourt, Henry V. I mean, Shakespeare wrote the play Henry V. Cry for England, Harry, and St. George. It was a famous victory over the French. And of course, Shakespeare is our national playwright. He's an awesome playwright, and probably the greatest in the whole of world history. And yeah, he remembered these moments in our history. I mean, Henry VIII, the break with Rome. So important in our history, that moment when the Church of England was founded and we were created again as a nation. During the reign of Edward III, Edward III is known as the father of the English. He reigned between 1327 and 1377 for 50 years. And when the Normans conquered England, they imposed the French language as the ruling language of the courts, of the legal system, of politics and government. And the church, of course, was Latin based then. It was a Catholic church. But in the reign of Edward III, the father of the English, he brought back the new English language. It was new then. It was like a mixture of Anglo-Saxon and French. And it became the language of government and the language of the courts and the legal system. And of course, our first national poet was Geoffrey Chaucer. Geoffrey Chaucer wrote the Canterbury Tales. So we discover our language as a history. And our language is very important because the English language is the language of the world. Now, how did this island, this small nation, spread its language across the whole globe to such an extent that it's now taken by every nation on earth as the standard language? Now, how big are we? 50 million now, but in the past, maybe 30 million. We're half the size of France. We're a tiny nation compared to Russia or India or China, or even the whole of Africa, if you think about it. We're a tiny nation. I mean, even in German, there's a lot more Germans and a lot more French in the past than English people, and yet the world speaks our language. Just think about that. Why don't they speak French? Why don't they speak Chinese? Why do they speak our language? Because there was something special in this country. Not only did we create a system of liberty and good government, but we spread it across the globe. Just as we translated the Bible, the King James Version of the Bible became a standard version of the Bible as the Christian faith was spread through the empire across the globe. We shaped the modern world. The people of this island, the English, we gave away the empire. I mean, I often think John's father came from Jamaica. Why didn't we keep hold of Jamaica? Why didn't we? I mean, it's a beautiful island. We gave it away. We gave it to the people who live there. Why didn't we keep hold of other parts of the world, all these lovely islands that we controlled? We gave them away, but before we gave them away, including Australia, we spread and developed these islands. Now it's only seen as a negative thing that somehow we destroyed the indigenous cultures. But the indigenous cultures were often illiterate, they were backward, there was no technological development. They would have been just swept away in the modern world. We went there, we were benevolent imperialists. We helped these countries develop. You know, obviously slavery was there, but we were the first nation to stop slavery. We were the first nation to actually fight to stop people being enslaved. We fought the Islamic slave trade in Africa, which was much larger than the European slave trade. The Muslims were enslaving millions of Africans, but we went out and stopped that. Once we decided that no, slavery was wrong, we weren't going to pursue it anymore, we gave all the slaves in the British Empire were bought. Their freedom was actually bought from their owners by the British government. We went into national debt to free all these people. And we said to the whole world, no, we have to move on from this. There's a better way to live. And the Royal Navy policed the waters of the world to stop slave ships because so many nations wanted to continue with slavery. So we've been a benevolent nation. We've been a nation which has brought technological development, cultural development. Look at the sports of the world. What's the sport that people play? Soccer, football, came from this country. Developed by the public school, Charles Alcock, an old Harrovian. He formed the FA Cup and formed the Wanderers, the first team to win the FA Cup, and created the rules for association football. So that football became the national game. Initially, it was played by the upper class, by old Etonians and old Harrovians. You know, the public schools play football. But then the northern clubs started to form. Blackburn Rovers, Blackburn Olympic, Preston North End along the Ribble Valley, Burnley. Everton is a great old club. And you know, these old clubs they formed the Football League, Aston Villa and Sunderland and Newcastle. Formed these football clubs, and we started this new game of association football. Now, what happened to that game? It spread, and it spread, and now it's the game of the world. It came from this country. Think of how much this country has given the world. I'm talking about democracy is very important. Parliamentary democracy. The idea that the politicians are accountable to the people. It's a British idea. The idea that you have regular elections and you have a franchise, you have people organised into constituencies to elect MPs. It's a British idea. The whole world took it on. America itself there were 13 colonies were created by the British. Virginia was named after Elizabeth I. America has taken on the mantle as the world's great power. But we gave it to them. We gave them their culture. We gave them their inheritance. We gave them their ideas. The first great American politicians, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, they're all Englishmen. They're all Scotsmen. They're all from Ulster and Ireland. We are the British people, and we've given so much to the world. We don't have to apologise for that. We don't have to explain it away, but we have to remember it. This is the point. Yeah, Preston won the double. They won the cup and the league, the first ever. And of course, Everton were the first club to actually have their own stadium, develop their own stadium. Football's really important. But as I say, we've given so much to the world, but we've got to remember this. We've got to speak it out with pride. Now, I could give you a date now, John. I could say, what year did the English Civil War begin? Any idea?
No idea.
James? Between Charles I and Oliver Cromwell. It began in 1641 with the Battle of Nottingham. And Charles was executed in 1649. He's had his head chopped off. And Oliver Cromwell became the Lord Protector. And he sort of, it was like, yeah, it's like these are really key moments in our history because we were not going to be ruled by tyrants. This is the nature of the British. We are a free nation. This is why freedom of speech is so important. Freedom of assembly, freedom to deselect MPs and to vote in new governments, because that's what we're going to have to do in this country. We have an imposition now. This government is not popular, and it needs to go and go promptly. But the king or the monarch, he had a role to play in defending this inheritance. But Charles doesn't seem up to it. He seems more concerned with creating this new society, this multicultural England, in which every culture is equal, whether it be Hindus or Muslims or I don't know, anything and everything, Buddhists, Africans, from all over the world. Suddenly, the English are just one amongst a whole kaleidoscope of different cultures. The first battle, Edge Hill, yeah, which was just outside Nottingham, yeah. The standard was raised at Nottingham by King Charles, and the first battle is Edge Hill, yeah. Thank you for that, Serena. She knows her stuff. But yeah, what was I saying? That yeah, we've got to celebrate our culture and we've got to know our history, because in the 18th century, of course, we had the famous 7 Years' War, which was really the first world war. This was fought in the 1750s between the French and the British. The famous Battle of the Abraham Heights in Canada, where the British took Montreal and took control of North America. Or the famous Battle of Bengal, Clive of Bengal, when the British took control of India. And, the British Navy, British sea power ruled the world and shaped the world. This is why we became so dominant, because our Navy was so powerful, and so many of our traditions came from our naval background. But it's good to reminisce and to think about British history, these key moments. And of course, the really great age of Britain is the Victorian age, the imperial age of Britain. James, what's your knowledge like of British history?
It's getting a lot better. Every time I see something being replaced or the history being changed, it's like they've just completely rewritten the history. Because, yeah, I've become more and more fascinated about sort of key events and the real history. I've got a good book, my granddad's book, quite an old one, and I'm reading through that one, trying to read more, to actually learn the truth, because you don't get the truth off news channels or even newspapers these days. Even documentaries, I'm skeptical of. They've infiltrated so many of our institutions, and truth is God and God is truth. So we must learn the truth and spread the truth. So I'm very interested and very fascinated, and we should be proud and interested because we've brought so much to the world. Which you tell people that, and they think, no, you're off your head, because this is not what we've been taught. This is not what's being, shall I say, passed down. So yeah, but I feel like with the replacement that's going on, with our people, with our institutions, it's bringing more people together, more people to the truth. They want to know the truth. Yeah, so I love learning, and especially to do with Britain, and the entire history is fascinating. There's so many key moments, and it's like 1,000 years you could say that we've been going as a nation, give or take, which is incredible. And we've given birth to so many big nations and big powers, like America, you were saying, Canada, Australia, the whole Commonwealth. Or cricket to India. Am I mistaken there? Yeah.
You know what's interesting what you said there, James, about the BBC, institutions. The BBC used to educate the British public. It used to be a fine organisation. It was well worth watching. There's a lot of great documentaries on. There was a lot of great history programmes. And then this political correctness, this woke madness took over and just becomes so boring. And it's like we've thrown out the baby with the bathwater. We've thrown out all that was great about Britain. Someone there's mentioned about the Bromborough, which was a key moment in British history. 937, Athelstan. I mean, the King of Wessex, Alfred, his grandson, to stop the Danes, his grandson Athelstan became the king of all Britons after his victory at the Battle of Bromborough. And that united England and gave England sort of dominance over the British Isles. And that was a key moment in history, 937. I mean, you can go deep, you can go back. You can go back to the pre-Roman periods. We've been here for over 10,000 years, maybe 15,000. You know, since the end of the Ice Age, we've come here and we've developed our civilizations and our way of life. There's so much history in these islands. But we went out, as James just said, we went out, we founded Australia, a whole continent. North America, not just Canada, but the United States as well, with British colonies. And of course, the transformation of Africa. You know, we went to the Cape. We went and we see a lot of the colonization of Africa was to stop Islam, which Islam was enslaving the Africans. And that's largely forgotten that. A lot of the battles in Arabia and in India was to push back the Muslim control. But we're going to talk about our conference, which is coming up shortly. It's great to reminisce about British history. We haven't touched on much of the 19th and 20th century, but we've gone back and we've gone into the depths of British history. But we've got Pat McGinnis here now. And Pat, we've been looking at British history, but of course there's going to be an historic event very shortly, the National Conference of the National Housing Party.
Yes. Sound check. Testing 1, 2.
Clear, crystal clear.
Yeah. Massive conference coming up end of this month, and it could be a historic event if the intellectual heavyweight from Merseyside can make it down there, aka the mighty Paul Rimmer.
Yes.
You know,
love to be there.
It's going to be an amazing event. We got a guest speaker we can't actually announce until the day, a special guest speaker, but we've got Jim Edwards speaking down there. James is going to speak, I'm going to speak, John's going to speak. Hopefully the Liverpool connection will be there. Yeah, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be barbecues, hot dogs, beef burgers. Might even have a bit of music down there, a bit of live music. You never know. It's going to be a great chance to meet all the NHPUK leadership, and all of our candidates are going to be there. It's going to be a great meeting, and I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully, it will be a nice day, because it's not been so good so far, August, is it? But I wanted to add something to the Erasing British History subject. I mean, some of you may know that when I first stood in the election in 2022, I did quite a hard-hitting leaflet, and one of the subjects on my leaflet was specifically about this. And I'm from an area of North London, which is right next to King's Cross, St Pancras Station, and there's a little area there called Somers Town. And the Labour Party thought it was a massive celebration that they'd managed to change the name of this massive council block of flats, and it was called Cecil Rhodes House. And for people who don't know, Cecil Rhodes was quite a big player in the British Empire. Is that correct, Paul?
Well, Cecil Rhodes gave his name to two countries, Rhodesia, which was southern Rhodesia, and northern Rhodesia, which is now Zambia. So there was two nations named after him. But he also pushed the British North from the Cape, which led to the Boer War. He developed the diamond industry in South Africa, which brought great wealth to Britain and to other people. But he also, he was at one stage, Pat, this is amazing, Cecil Rhodes was the richest man in the world. In fact, he was the last British person to be the richest man in the world. So he's a key figure in history. And his most famous statement was, to be born English is to win first prize in the lottery of life. To be born English is to win first prize. Imagine being British English thing, linked to, you've won first prize in life. It was the greatest nation on earth. It was the greatest culture on earth. It was the greatest upbringing on earth. It was the greatest nation on earth, Britain, beautiful Britain, and our empire. So Cecil Rhodes, yeah, very important man, Pat. Very, very important.
Can I just weigh in? So our national conference, we're the National Housing Party, and we're just bothered about running in local elections. We're not meeting to make any particular like a white community. We're not meeting to train in any kind of resistance. We're meeting because we want to run in local elections. That's what we want to do. So there's nothing extreme involved in this meeting. You know, like, and even if you're media and you want to come, we would be willing to sort something out. But you just got to email us, and there is the email. We want people to see that we're real and we are running in elections, which we are. And a lot of people don't like that because they're not capable of doing it for whatever reason. But we're running in local elections. We're not here to make a boot camp to make some snide army. We're not there to go on about ethnic minorities and just slag people off all the time. We're there to run in elections. We've got criticisms against the government. So have everybody in the UK, whether you're white, black, pink, brown, everyone's got criticism of something to do with the government. And what we want to promote is standing up for yourself and running in local elections. That's what we're there for. So, you know, please come to our meeting. You know, I did get a question. You're not going to be Bible bashed. You know, we will talk about faith, but it's not going to be all the talk of all the meeting. We've got other things that we will be discussing. But we want to run in local elections. That's what I'll be talking about. The history of our party, what we've done, how we've got into supporting communities with stuff. Pat's been doing a petition, and I've been confronting councillors, housing officials, and the police about antisocial behaviour and incidents in the area that need sorting out. This is what we're doing. This is how we want to work. We don't want to like do anything snidey. We're not there to like, you know, do it. We want to run in local elections and get involved in our communities. So that's why you should come to our national conference. That's why you should come. The emails are at the bottom. We have had a few emails. Tommy Trump's coming. Thank you very much, mate. So I'm hoping we get more people coming as well. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
He was going to be doing about abortion this week. Go on, Pat.
Yeah, most importantly, we're going there to support the veterans and support Dion and Joe, who do an amazing job for our veterans. Because, to be honest, the veterans of this country are the most important people, in my opinion. So, you know, that's what it's mainly about, is to support the camp. John's got links with the camp, the Veterans PTSD camp, and it's going to be a great day. So if you would like to come, please email us, and we can arrange something if we get along and stuff. So, but let me just finish this story, yeah? So there's a block of flats called, there was a block of flats called Cecil Rhodes House. And, you know, this is just as we got the party registered with the Electoral Commission. It was on the verge of getting registered any day. And I had received a leaflet through my letterbox from Camden, which wouldn't have been the first anti-British, anti-white leaflet, a big newsletter. And they were celebrating the fact that they went into this block of flats and they were mostly Muslim in the pictures that they showed on the leaflet, celebrating that they had a vote in the block of flats to change the name because it's linked to slavery and all this British Empire stuff. And they were celebrating it, and it just made me so angry. I was livid, mate. You just don't know how livid I was with this blinking newsletter coming through my letterbox from Camden Council, Labour-run Camden Council, celebrating erasing our British history. And this was at the time of the statues, after the statues and all that. Or was that before? I can't remember. But it's just it's been a trickle for many years now, and it's just come to a head now. They're just doing it openly now, just erasing everything about our history. this, that, and the other. So I put it on my leaflet, and what I put on the leaflet was I put a screenshot of the leaflet they put through my door, saying that I object to this erosion of our British history. I want all the street names put back. I want all the building names put back, and I would like to have a vote in the local area for our local mosque, because the local mosque is linked to Muhammad, and Muhammad owned a slave. So I want that name changed. And, you know, I knew that they wasn't going to have a vote on it and stuff. But when I was out canvassing with that leaflet, I actually knocked on a guy's door, a Bangladeshi, and he even said to me, he said, I didn't even know that myself, that Muhammad owned a slave. I said, well, you learn something new every day, don't you? And he actually voted for me. I mean, I don't think he was very religious, but, you know, he even said to me, he can see the anti-white agenda, what's going on. He can see it, anti-British agenda. So, yeah, I put it on the leaflet, and it rustled some feathers. That was just one of the topics. It was like 4 or 5 controversial topics on the leaflet. And, you know, I actually put my name and address on the leaflet, and it, you know, 7,000 leaflets went out. And I was at the stage where I was so angry about everything what's happened to our country. I just thought, I don't care anymore. And if people want to come around my house, they can come around my house, because I'm standing in the election and I'm standing up for our country. So that's what happened. No one come around my house. No one stopped me in the street. I got a good vote. I got one letter sent to me, and it was a positive letter. And he was a bit of a lefty as well, but he wrote to me and he said, I really thank you for standing and giving us another option on the ballot paper, because where I live, it's just been Labour. Well, Labour's just won it every single time without anyone challenging them. And then you'd have Liberal Dems on the ballot paper and the Conservatives. But, you know, it's changing now. The next election is next May. And it's going to be a fight, I tell you, because, you know, Corbyn starting his new party, that's going to split Labour. Obviously, Reform's destroying Conservative, and it's all up for grabs. It's all on. All hands to the deck. we got to go. Let's go. So yeah. So that's my story about the erosion of our. That's just one example. I mean, everyone's got a story. They've changed road names. They're just changing everything, aren't they? So we need to get a patriotic Christian nationalist government back in power and restore it all quick.
Well, can I ask James? James, you've just come out of education. I mean, one of the main way we should be passing on this knowledge of our past and our glorious achievements is through the education system. What did you learn at school? What was Britain denigrated? I mean, Pat just talked about Cecil Rhodes and slavery. Cecil Rhodes had nothing to do with slavery. He was nearly 100 years after it. You know, and this is the point. They use this thing about slavery, but slavery ended over 200 years ago. What was your history like at school? What is it like being taught in school today?
I mean, I left school 8 years ago, so it's been a while. History, to be honest, I don't remember them teaching us much to do with the British Empire or the British English history at all. I mean, we're learning bits about a few key battles here and there, but and about medicines and things, but nothing that really got your attention and, you know, made you feel proud of, you know, who you are and where you come from and your roots. And I can imagine now's even worse. I think 8 years, you know, since then, nothing stood out to be that horrendous, but nothing stood out to be that good. If that makes sense. But I can imagine now, it's very negative. You look at just all you got to look at is the headlines and the way the media words things. It's absolutely awful. You know how they describe our own people. We've been completely taken over by traitors. But like I was saying, I think with the way they've gone about it is just pushing people now to stand up and to learn the truth and to come together. You know, we're the British people. At the end of the day, we've come through and conquered a lot worse. So there is hope, and in a way, I feel like the rest of Western Europe is waiting for us to lead the charge. Yeah.
It is sad the way they've erased so much of our history. It's not just history in school. The people that have lost the sort of chronology, the timeline of our history, but also literature. I mean, I mentioned Chaucer, I mentioned Shakespeare, you know, the great 19th century writers, the Charles Dickens, the Thomas Hardys, even the 20th century, the Graham Greens. They're not taught anymore. Kids now are taught about feminism. They're talking, you know, it's like you'll have female commentators for association football, and you study female authors now. There's been some decent female authors, especially in the 19th century, you know, the Bronte sisters, Jane Eyre. But, you know, contemporary feminist authors, they're pushing an agenda all the time. So the institutions which passed on our cultural heritage, we're talking about the BBC, the Church of England, the education system, the universities, the ancient universities, Oxford and Cambridge, they've been lost. They've been made totally woke. So they're no longer fulfilling that role. In fact, they're constantly denigrating our past. So how are we going to pick up the mantle? We've got to take responsibility. I mean, as I said to you earlier, I'm in the Orange Order. Now, a lot of people think, oh, they're sectarian. No, we're not. We just celebrate the liberty and the faith that we have in this nation. We get together and we celebrate some of the key battles. And we remember how many of our lads died in the First and Second World War to create the modern world. Now, whether you think those wars were a mistake and shouldn't have happened is another thing. But, you know, so many of our lads gave their lives and have got to be honoured, including my great uncles, 3 of my great uncles. And the Orange Order takes it upon itself to remember these battles, the Somme, to go and visit the battlefields in France, to remember our glorious dead. One of the greatest regiments ever in British military history is the 36th Ulster Division, which was the only regiment which defeated its German foes on the first day of the Battle of the Somme and actually took the ground. But John, do you want to say something? Go on.
Yeah, I just want to in the chat, JG Cats and Things, Jackie. She's going to help me manage me YouTube a little bit more, and she's a mod. So I just want you to introduce you to her, Mark, and everyone else who's a mod. But that's Jackie, who you'll see on quite regular, and she's going to help me manage a channel a bit, and has got a few ideas and stuff like that. But thank you, Jackie, and Oldham Girl as well. And she agrees with a lot, most of the stuff we're talking about as well. If you want to subscribe to her channel, she's into animals and creepy crawlies and that, and does loads of videos and that, and very interactive. I just thought I'd introduce you because a lot of you have been wondering who it is, but that is Jackie. That is Jackie, a good friend.
Let me just get back to British history, John.
Of course.
And we actually had a stream, didn't we? On me and you just on it about the history of the British monarchs from Alfred the Great into William of Orange. That was very popular. We need to have another stream going from William of Orange to Charles III.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's a story. We could go look at the Georgian, the Hanoverian monarchs. We could look at the Stuarts. We could look at. We went up to King Billy, didn't we? So we'd have to go beyond that. We'd have to go, especially into the Victorian age and the 20th century. There's so much British history. Our roots are so deep. I mean, John, Pat McGinnis, the McGinnis clan in Ireland goes back at least 5,000 years.
It's from Scotland, Paul.
It is from Scotland, but there was a McGinnis clan in Ulster, even in ancient Ireland, you know.
Different spelling. My last name originates in Scotland. She's spelt differently, and they moved.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I've seen both those spellings in Ireland, and I know that. See, Ulster Scots originally were an Irish tribe. This is the thing about the history of our islands, the way we've mixed in these islands. James, what's your surname?
Crane.
Sorry?
CR. Crane.
Crane.
CR.
Craig.
No,
Cray.
No,
Crane.
yeah.
Crane. What do you know anything about the history of your name? Because names tell a massive story as well.
I don't, to be honest. I want to know more
Yeah.
with my ancestry. Obviously, I know, dad, granddad, and it was great granddad, and that's as far back as I know. But yeah, I'll be interested to know the origins of it
Well,
because,
Well, it's
like
a
you
great
said, there's
hobby in
so
this country. You know, family trees and the origin of your name. I mean, my mother was a Milne, which is a clan up in the north of Scotland, around Aberdeen. And I've got Irish background from the Burkes in Galway and from the Kellys in County Kerry, and also the Nortons in Northern Ireland in County Down. But I'm predominantly Welsh. And this is the way all of our four home nations have interacted through the centuries, has been really dynamic in shaping the culture of this country. They want to separate us now. They want to be divisive and say that we're all hostile to each other. But the way we've interacted and built the British people has been the force which has made us so powerful and should be celebrated. I mean, I'm proud of the fact I'm Irish. And there's John there. He's a product of the British Empire in many ways, Caribbean and British. So,
well, my
John,
dad,
you crossed the Atlantic Ocean. Anything to say?
yeah, my dad come over with the name Granville, Wilberforce, Lawrence, and all them three names are related to things to do with ending the slave trade, if people didn't know.
Wow.
But me and Pat went to Ireland, and near the Titanic memorial, there's a little estate, and we ended up talking to them, and they have 40 different families coming from Scotland living with them while they do the 12th of the marches, the Orange marches. And like they're practically family. That's how closely linked the Scots and the Irish are. So these people, they come over from Scotland, they don't pay no hotel bills, they stay in that area with these people. So there's an house opened up for them or whatever, or they get rooms in houses, and that's how it is. And until I went to Ireland, I didn't know any of this. I didn't know I closely linked the Irish word to the Scottish. I just didn't know. So it's amazing what we learn when we go abroad and we look into things and stuff like that. And it was really nice. So even though there's a lot of Scots in Ireland, they're practically all family, them people. The woman we was talking to said that for the past 20 years, these same families have come over and stayed with them over the celebrations and that. And they do the same when they go to Scotland. So that's how intertwined our country is, on a level. But thank you, everyone. Thank you in the chat for joining. Been a lot of discussion tonight and stuff like that in the chat. Thank you, Jackie, and all the mods in the chat as well. Thank you, Toffee. Brilliant. Coming up with that battle in the Wirral. Thank you for Serena as well, coming up with that first battle in Nottingham, and then bringing in the Ed Chill or whatever you said. Thank you very much. That's what we like in our party. We like to know our history and our truth. Final last words, anybody?
Yeah, just about the ancestry and that. So my last name originates in Scotland, and they went to Ireland as Protestants, and then they converted to Catholicism. Then they went to America. That's my dad's side, but his mum's name was Hams, an English name. So my and the Scottish as well. So my dad was English, Irish, Scottish. So all his roots were from the British Isles, and then my mum's side was Swan and Smythe. So English and I'm not sure. They say Smith in Ireland, but they say Smythe in England. Smyth. And like Paul said, our four nations should be one united people. It's I can't stand all these English separatists who are trying to break us all up. It's just very retarded in my opinion. And at the end of the day, my first name, Patrick, is not Irish. Patrick was born in Wales. He was a Roman nobleman. Patrick means in Latin, Patrick means nobleman, noble one, sorry. And, you know, I'm not ashamed of my Irish roots. I've got quite a lot of Irish blood in me. But the only Irish relatives I have today alive in Ireland are Orange Irish. So on my dad's side, I don't have any alive today on that side. But yeah, where I stand in election in central London, a lot of the Cockneys who consider themselves English, a significant amount of them have got Irish last names and they're Catholic. But they go so far back, and you would never know. You just think they're English straight away, you know, and they consider themselves English.
Well, before the Reformation, Pat, we were all Catholics, English, Scottish, Irish and Welsh, and not for a short period of time, for maybe 5, 6, well, I mean, what was it, St. Augustine of Canterbury came over during at the end of the 6th century. So Catholicism is very deep in this country, although we have the Reformation and King Billy and the Transformation then. But you know, these are our shared heritage. We can claim both. And the moment we should really celebrate in this country, in which we do, is Christmas. Christmas Day is really our national day because it's the one festival we've kept hold of. Everyone knows the Christmas carols. We've lost a lot of our hymns from our Christian background. We still know them. Dear Lord and Father of Mankind, Amazing Grace. We know our hymns. Go on, Pat.
Easter as well.
Easter, yeah. Now they've managed to dilute Easter and push it aside a bit, but Christmas is still very strong. But I notice as our cities become more Islamic, these areas are very dark at Christmas time. They don't celebrate Christmas. I mean, they're going to start to try and dilute Christmas and make it less significant. I mean, this is King Charles, wasn't he? He celebrated the end of Ramadan, making Ramadan a much more significant holiday. We've got to revive and keep our traditions going. We have such a wealth of traditions in this country. But James, what does Christmas mean to you?
Let me just finish off, James. 1 sec. So,
sorry, Pat. Go on.
I'll end it there, and hopefully see some people down at the camp. Please contact us, admin@nationalhousingparty.uk if you want to come. It's at the end of August, and looking forward to meeting everyone. And I'll hand it over to you, James. Christ is King.
Thank you, Pat. Yeah, great stream tonight. Great topic, great conversation. Lots of truth, lots of interesting facts and important information. What Christmas means to me, Christmas is a celebration, you know, where you take the time with your families and with your friends, and it's a get together. You know, it's a celebration. So that's what it means to me. You know, the special time where you're away from work, and you've got some valuable time to be present and to enjoy with your loved ones.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Really chatty tonight. 300 people watching. Thank you very much. Admin at nationalhousingparty.uk for our conference. We've got just a few free week left. I'm going to be banging on about it, and there'll be some posts, and there's going to be emails out. Thank you very much. God bless. Good night.
Good night.